I'm going to paint a whimsical bird today, a doodly whimsical bird. I'm using my Canson XL sketchbook here, which we're getting through quite rapidly, but that's okay. I think next time, when I order the next one, I'll get a slightly bigger one. Anyway, so we're just going to do one bird, and I'm going to just draw the outline here. And as you know, my whimsical birds aren't really realistic. Not exactly, but they're sort of identifiable as birds. So I've done the body like this, and we're going to give him a fairly big beak like that, and a nice big eye, bigger than perhaps usual. And I'm going to put some sort of teardrops off to the side like that, and then his wing is going to be down here like that. Give it a little bit of a curve around the top, and then some feet down here, just 1 foot, 2 feet, and then let's imagine that he's standing on a wire kind of thing, shall we? Now, let me see, let's find a brush. This is a round size 7 Drawwell brush. And I'm going to do the background colour first. So I think we'll start off with something fairly light. I'm using the Kuretake colours here. Kuretake Gansai Tambi colours. And let's put in a nice wash, leaving holes. I'm going to leave holes, and the reason why I'm going to leave holes is because I want some areas where I can put in, for example, blue or yellow, sorry, not yellow, blue or red, without it necessarily being tainted or tinted, changed by the colour underneath. So we're going to gradually add orange to the yellow. This is cadmium orange, and we'll put some of that in. And don't need to worry too much about leaving gaps on the wing. Well, I don't know quite exactly how this is going to go. So we're just putting in a nice lot of red here. That's rose madder. And a bit more orange down the back here on the wing. I'm painting this fairly thickly. Then underneath, first of all, I'm going to pop in a sort of base coat of grey and bring that up fairly close to the wing. It doesn't matter if it bleeds a little bit. Just make it a bit more interesting. And then I'm going to get some turquoise. Some of these colours are quite opaque, which is quite nice. So we'll just drop in some blue like this and let that sort of wishy-washy around. And then maybe a little bit of violet. This is, what is that colour? That is cobalt violet, that's right. And a bit more blue. Greenish blue, a bit more of that down here. It's a nice contrast with the red. And we'll put in some dots and things on the undercoat of orange, yellow, whatever you want to call it. And let's paint his beak in red. And let's do these. This is kind of like his, what do you call it? Crest, or no, what do you call it, the thing on the top of a cockerel's head? I always forget this word. It seems to be, that particular word is blocked in my head when I'm painting, because I had this problem before. I'll remember it in a minute. And then maybe let's make his feet nice and blue. Once we've got all the colours into place, then we can doodle, but we'll have to let it dry first. Let's do some more of these things down here. Let's do them in blue. And drop in some dark blue. Okay, I think let's just put a little bit more red in the middle of these here. And I'm going to put a pupil in his eye. And now I'm going to let it dry. Okay, so he's dry, I think, and I'm going to use for my next stage, being as this is obviously a multimedia, mixed media thing. I've got a box of Inktense pencils that a kind lady sent me, and I'm going to use those for the next step, I think. And what I'm going to do is just basically doodle with these. So I'm going to be picking up various colours and just going over what I've already done. So for example, doing extra lines and circles and, you know, you name it. Little triangles, circles. These pencils are watercolor pencils, so they will bleed when I touch them with a paintbrush. go darker, like that. Using the pencils, you can sharpen things up and make them go rounder, you know. Much more easily than you can with a brush. And if you want to make texture, you can do that. Sort of just lay the pencil on the side and rub it over like that. That's black, I don't necessarily want black. And you could do a random pattern over where you've painted the wing, for example. I'm looking for a light blue and I'm not seeing a light blue, which is a shame. But we have to use this one. So we go inside those circles. The doodling is fun. Take as long over it as you like. It's quite nice to go around the outside edges, I think. There's a nice soft green there. Perhaps we put some of that in there. And then when you get to a certain point, you can come in with paintbrush again if you want. Blue, a little bit of so just some water, and then we can sharpen up some of them, make them a bit darker. And let us put a branch here, blue perhaps. Gabriel's out. We've let the chickens out. They've been in the last 6 weeks. They've been inside because of the bad weather. And we've just let them out. So he's making a nice noise. Make his eye a little bit softer. we could now go, if we like, to some white pen. Yeah, we were worried about the sheep in the winter because it was the mud in the field, and we thought, and I think it's true, that the grass needed to be rested. So because we had such a terrible drought last year with the heat wave and everything, and the grass was really badly damaged. So this year, for the first year, we never had to do it before. We had to take the sheep inside the barn, just for 6 weeks though, and they've been fine. And they're, funnily enough, much tamer now than they were before. They know their names, and when you say, "No, Larry, do not go in the workshop," he comes away and doesn't go in the workshop, which I think is quite remarkable for a sheep, don't you think? So the white dots really sort of, the white embellishments, definitely you can make them improve things. Not totally happy with the shape of the bird's beak, so I'm just going to try and change it a bit with the white. Okay. Well, we could carry on forever embellishing more and more and improving it with pencil, doing whatever you feel. That's blue. I don't think I want blue. I think maybe we'll go for the black a little bit here. Let's see what happens. Put a little bit of black on. There we are. This morning I'm going to paint some sheep. I can't quite decide, I still haven't quite decided which one I'm going to do, but I do know that I'm going to put 2 behind and 4 in front, so that's for the 6 sheep. So let's, first of all, we're going to draw just bubbles like that. 1, 2, 3, 4 sheep, and then I need my rubber. That's part of the plan. Somewhere here I have an eraser. Didn't think I've been planning this all morning, would you? Disorganised is me. Then so I just rub out the tops there because that's where the heads are going to go, right? And then we're going to do sort of ovals that are a bit fatter at the bottom than they are at the top for their heads, like that. And up here we're going to put 2 heads and the fleeces, and then another fleece like that. So that looks like nothing on egg. That looks like nothing on egg. Nothing on earth is what I meant to say. So we'll put the ears in now. Ears like this. Lots of sheep's ears. And then we need to put in, what do we put in next? Their legs. And I think sheep look kind of cute when they've got quite long legs. And we always look at our sheep and think, how do you manage to run around like lunatics and not break those spindly things? But somehow they do. And the eyes we'll put in afterwards, I think. I'm going to try and keep the faces white. I might have to add some white paint to that. We will see. Okay, so now this Viviva paper is a bit strange, and when you paint on it, you have to be very direct and quick. And I'm going to mix some olive green on there with some blue to give me a nice dark blue colour like this, bluey green. So, sorry, move that over here somewhere where you can see it. Dirty dirt. There, can you see it there? Yes. Can't see what colour it is though, can you? Anyway, this, when it goes on, is going to be a nice dark green, and we'll give some, try and go round the head like that and just give, I don't know, what do you call that, scallops into the fleece like that. So there's our green one. And then I think I'm going to follow the one that's above there. Can you see? No, you can't. All you can see is a row of legs. Looks like the Tiller girls. And then we'll do this orange one. Who remembers the Tiller girls? That's, what's the word? That is about as English as it comes, I think. Sunday night at the London Palladium. Okay, girls, English girls out there, who doesn't remember that? I used to have to ask my mum if I could stay up late to watch it, because I really liked the quiz. Wasn't there a quiz at the end? I think there was. Can't remember now. I'm losing it. Right, next one is going to be red. And we're going to make that a little bit bluer than that. So we'll just add a bit of Indian throne blue to make it into a sort of purple. These colours are nice and bright. We go round the scallops there. Round the head. The good thing about this paper is that it's nice and smooth to paint on. The bad thing about it is that it shows all the brush marks. But then the good thing about this paper is that it shows all the brush marks. So it's, you know. C'est comme ça, as they say here. Now let's do the next one in a sort of lighter green, I think. So this is fig green mixed with a bit of whatever it was I did for the first one. So that'll be a bit more of a slightly more opaque, slightly more yellowish. And we'll just carry on round the face like that. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. So yes, we got up this morning and the air was full of smoke, and my first thought was, oh my God, have we set the house alight? Because it was so hot, 41 degrees yesterday. 41 degrees for American guys is well over 100. Anyway, so I stuck my head out the window and most of the smoke seemed to be coming from outside. Turns out later I bumped into the lady, the farmer lady who lives next door to us. Bumped into her when we went to do some shopping. And she said, oh, yeah, I know, there's a, oh, you know, in French, ah, mais oui. There's a forest fire up in the mountains. We're near to a place called Les Monts d'Arrée, which is a kind of, it's like, for those of you who know England, it's like Dartmoor. It's a forest, but it's full of things like bracken and that sort of stuff, which burns nicely. Given half a chance. Anyway, apparently 300 hectares had gone up in smoke. I'm going to do this one in a not like that. No, that's in a greenish blue. Yes. so that the overall effect is kind of calming. We want a sort of bluish, greenish kind of thing, but we also want a little bit of, what's the word? Okay, I'll be back with you in a minute. I think we're just having downtime. Something soothing and something enlivening at the same time. Green. There we are. So we have a nice Air Force blue, a nice sort of Potter's pinky brown kind of colour, sea green, if you like, and orange and maroon, and a nice kind of green. Now we'll be looking for something to do their legs in, so we'll go for something dark blue, I think. And just pop in some straight legs like that. If you've ever watched sheep closely, you'll know that they do have 4 legs, but I'm only going to give them 2. Because if you've ever looked at a picture of sheep with 4 legs, they look silly, unless it's an accurate picture, of course, which this isn't. They look very silly. So I'm going to swap to a smaller brush now. That was a 7, I think. Yeah. I think I'll just switch to a 3 because I'm going to have to put their ears in now, so we don't want too big of a brush. And these ears are going to be roughly the same colour as the sheep, slightly different perhaps, but roughly the same. There we are. Okie dokie. Now, I'm going to, at the end, I'm going to in a minute do some embellishment with some pen work and stuff. And first of all, the first thing I'm going to do is try to find a pen that will write. And then I'll do their faces and so on. That looks as if it'll work. Now, sheep have eyes that are really quite high up on their heads, like that. Ovalish kind of things. And this pen's too fat. Don't like that. Don't like that. Don't like that. I don't think that one will work. Don't like that. Let's try this one. You can always put a bit more white in there if you think that you've gone a bit heavy-handed. Now, I think the best way to do a sheep's face, the nose and mouth, is to put the mouth in first like that. So, and then you can make that into a kind of C. And then you need a V above it like that. And then just join the two together. Okay, and so you can have a big smile like that if you want. A little nose thingy, what's it, and then join like that. There's all sorts of different ways you can do this. But you can make a grumpy sheep with a straight mouth like that. Or thoughtful. That's what you should say, thoughtful. And this one is quite happy. She's thinking about her birthday. There we go. And these two up here. I think it's definitely easier to do the mouth part first. I've tried lots of different ways of doing this. And that seems to be the best. Excuse me. Must be the smoke. That's better. I think that one's eyes could be a little bit bigger. But we can play about with that later. And then they all need horns because our sheep were Jacob's sheep, and we'll go round the ears like that in pen. So we had 14 sheep, you see, and that's too many because we had a bunch of lambs last year, kind of, not this year, but last year, and it was kind of accidental, really. We knew we shouldn't, we knew we couldn't, but we couldn't resist it, or at least the ram couldn't. And so we ended up with lots of lambs, and we were okay, and we would have been okay, except we're now going through a drought of mega proportions. It hasn't rained since March. It's now July. And our grass has just conked out after the last few days of 40 degrees. It's just really, I know, it's like the end of the world. Okay, now we need to do some embellishment on here. And I liked what I did on here because it was quick. So we'll just go over this one. We've got this white gel pen here, Uniball, wide, white gel pen. And, oh, my bum's going numb. We'll just put some dots on this one. Do you know, I think this is my favourite colour now. This used to be my favourite colour, that green. But now I like this green more. What's your favourite colour? Oh, somebody said earlier today that they love Art Spectrum paints. She's Australian, and so of course that's the brand, Art Spectrum. I wish I could get them here in France. I can't really. I could buy them from Jackson's, but they don't have the best colours. They don't do the full range, and they don't have the colours I like Australian red gold and Pilbara red and Aussie green gold, and they're just really, really cool colours. And I used to use them some years ago now, 20 years ago I heard about them. And at that time, there were very few unusual colours, in my opinion anyway. It was hard to find. Perhaps they were there, but I just didn't know about them. But I went on a course, and the person who taught the course used those. He was from New Zealand. And so I bought a lot from him. And he was the one actually who taught me how to paint flowers and also introduced me to the draw well brushes from Japan. I always remember him saying that his painting had improved enormously since he started using those. And I did find the same thing happened to me too. Okay, I'm going to do another spotty one back here. I'm going to do the spots in little groups of 5 though, rather than just random. Anyway, what was I saying? So, yeah, so I had some of their colours for a while, and then they ran out and I wasn't really able to replace them. And so, yeah, if anyone knows where I can get hold of them. If there's a supplier in Australia, I couldn't find anyone in Australia. Even contacting the manufacturers direct, they just said, oh, we've got suppliers in England. And I'm like, yeah, you have, but they don't have the right colours. Okay, we're on to our nice little dark red one now, and we're going to put some little hearts on her. And this is going to be my tribute to the 6 sheep that we had to let go. They haven't been killed. They've gone to live with somebody else. And I'm rather hoping that we might, we might be able to have them back. You never know. It depends what happens. I'll give them some little knees. Little white knees. And we could put a little curly top on them, I think. Make sure this is the right size. I'm not going to bother with all of the horns because they're tricky and I'll get them wrong. But we can put little curly tops on all of them because if there's one thing our sheep definitely have, it's curly tops. So there we are. And I think they probably need a few eyebrows. And give them different shaped eyebrows to go with their mouths. There we are, and I'm going to just grab a little bit of very pale pink. And we're going to give the ladies little pink cheeks like that. So I think that one's a lady, that one's a lady, this one's a lady, and the other three are boys. So there we are. And let's just pop in here our signature flower. Which we will paint in, well, how about green for the leaves? And pink for the flower. There we are. Okay then, 6 sheep. Now let me see if I can remember their names. Tamsin, can you remember the sheep's names?
Jerome.
This is Jerome.
Princess Leia.
Princess Leia and her boyfriend
Zen.
Zen. And then this is
Astra.
Astra.
Fizz.
Nova. And Nova. There we are then. Tribute to our sheep. Today we're going to do a video without music, and so that's right. And I am going to start by doodling away with, I've got a dip pen here, just an ordinary metal dip pen, and I'm going to start the day by drawing some twigs as loosely as I can, but I do think I might sit down. And I'm going to natter about inconsequential things. So, and I might talk about what I'm doing. And I'm going to see how it goes, because I've been the last few days working on something and failing to decide. Couldn't decide what to do, so we'll see what happens. This is a bit like doing a neurographic exercise, but it's not, because I'm just using a dip pen. Don't think they talk about dip pens much. But it's quite fun. You get a very irregular line, and I quite like that. I like to let things just happen. You never know what's going to turn out. Some of the best, no, not some of the best, some of my favourite little paintings that I've done have been ones that I did when I wasn't thinking about painting too much. Little sketches of birds and things like that. So what I'm doing is thinking about leaves and just putting, this is a kind of abstract framework. I'm going to have to be careful there, because maybe I'll try and suck some of that up with a thirsty brush, because there's a little bit too much ink came out of the pen there. So I'll just suck that up. Yes. So, yes, I wonder if everybody else is busy with their summer jobs yet. We have such difficult winters here, and because we live kind of in the countryside, when it's raining and cold, and we get a lot of wind these days, climate change. So in the summer, we have to try and get on with some of the jobs that we've put off. So, for example, we've got a fence in the front garden that needs repairing, and yesterday my husband cut his finger quite badly. See, there meant to be a drip there. Cut his finger quite badly using an angle grinder on his hand. I don't know, honestly, men. So I think we'll probably call that a framework, and I couldn't make up my mind whether to put cats or birds, but I think it's probably going to have to be birds. So I have got here my Daniel Smith set of Primatech colours. These ones here. We've got Rhodonite, which is red. We've got hematite, which is black. We've got jadeite, which is green. Amethyst, which is mauve. Mayan blue, which is obviously blue. And this one must be piemontite or piemontite, which is a kind of rusty brown. And they are quite nice colours. And they're granulating. And granulating is when you get a texture, a visual texture. It's not actually rough, but you get a visual texture when you paint. So I'm going to grab a pencil, first of all, and I'm going to draw my birds on here. And I'm going to, basically, these are going to be very similar to the ones we did the other day. Similar. They won't obviously be quite the same. And I'm just going to try to vary them a little bit as we go along. So I'm just, all I do to do these birds is to draw a circle and thinking, okay, the legs are like that, so it's going to be pointing that way. And this one, the legs are going to be like that. And we're going to do it sort of more upright like that. And this one, I think, what am I going to do? I don't want him facing that way, do we? So he's going to have to be looking up, I guess, with the others. So his legs are going to be like something like that. So that gives us our rough outlines. And then you've got lots of different ways you can do this. I don't remember. I'm not using very special paper here. This is Etival, Clairefontaine Etival. It's cellulose. To tell you the truth, I was going to do this as a practice, but then I decided I would film it anyway. And if it turns out, you'll see it. So the birds, we're going to do the same sort of thing, I think. I'm going to drop the brown colour in the top of the bird. Quite reasonably intense because it will run. Then I'm going to put on the underside, what shall I put? Grey. Hematite, it's got a lot of texture. And we need to let that blend a bit and see what happens. And then I'm going to just take the dip pen again and just ink in the legs and the feet. And then beak. And then I was thinking maybe we would do a squirrely tail like that. So we'll let that do its thing. And then the next one, shall we do it blue on the sides? This one's sort of facing forward, so put blue on the sides, sort of like wings. And then, excuse me, what shall I put on the inside? In the middle. Shall we do the grey again? And we'll just see what happens. Legs, feet. beak. Squirrely tail. I probably will go round the outside of these when it's dried, but not before, because if I go round it with ink when it's wet, it will all run in. So we don't want to do that. So what do we think about the third colour? Shall we use the purple and the grey? Amethyst. I think I'll stick with the grey. Okay, and then the legs. And the beak. And the swirly tail. So now we're going to have to wait for that to dry. And meantime, maybe I'll just paint some green into the leaves. Now this colour is from the Jean Haynes set of All That Shimmers. That's also a Daniel Smith colour. Some of them aren't dry, so we'll just wait for those to dry and then we'll come back and finish them off. While this is drying, I'll just show you the box for the Jean Haynes All That Shimmers set, and it comes with like 6 colours. There's a green, a silver, a gold, a copper, a sort of iridescent pink, and an iridescent blue. And they're quite nice to have, and I've added a little bit of iridescent silver here, and I'm going to probably put a little bit of, maybe we'll put a little bit of iridescent pink on here. Sort of blend that in. See how that goes when that dries. Maybe I'll add a little bit more purple. And this one I've added a bit of silver, and I think maybe perhaps this one could do with a bit of copper. It's hard to tell when it's all wet how it's going to work out. But we will see. And then I was going to use the iridescent green for the leaves that I drew earlier. Just filling those in. I think they're probably more or less dry now. If you want to track down any of these paints, have a look on my Amazon shop front page, which the link is in the description below. And you can go there, and everything that I've mentioned in any of the videos is there for you to click on the link, and you can find it quickly on Amazon. You don't have to go hunting for it. So I really am going to have to wait for this to dry now before I can go on. I better put my brush in water to wash that ink off before it all sticks. Oh, I should mention also the ink, I guess. I'm using Sennelier. This is Sennelier drawing ink. This one is walnut. dark brown. It comes in a set of 5 different colours. So there we are. I'm going to turn the camera off for a second and let this all dry. Okay, so I think now I need to put the eye in place. So I'm going to use my tracing paper trick, whereby I put a piece of tracing paper with an eye drawn in it onto the drawing, and I decide exactly where I think is going to give it the best character, and then I just transfer it using a pen like that. Pen's not working very well, maybe I'll grab another one. Okay, and then this one, I think that wants to go around about there. And this one there. So there they are. And now I'm going to, what shall I do next? I've got 2 things I want to do. Try and find my small brush. Okay, I'm going to try some silvery gold on here. So I thought these ones, I wanted to give a sort of more, what's the word? Something kind of more ornate, a little bit embellished with gold and stuff like that. So it looks more sort of Renaissance, something like out of the 17th, 18th, 16th, I don't know, century, a while ago. So putting on little dashes of gold onto a rich colour like this blue, I thought that that would perhaps work. And then this one. If you just do single strokes, you can get a sort of teardrop shape with the right size brush. Make them a bit smaller at the side there. And then this one at the top. Oh, I wanted to tell you about a book that I came across the other day by Anne Blockley. People in England will probably have heard of Anne Blockley. I've mentioned her before, daughter of the well-known painter John Blockley. She had a book out a couple of years ago which came out during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic. I shouldn't say during the pandemic. I'm just painting the beaks gold as well. And it's called Creativity Through Nature. Foraged, recycled and natural mixed media art. And it's a very interesting book, not only for the pictures that are in it, but because of the things that she's written about her life and where it has been going lately. And she's about my age, I think. And she says a few years ago she had breast cancer, which I did too. Actually, for me, more than a few years ago. It's quite a long time ago now. And how she nearly gave up painting, but she's picked it up again. And she's explaining how she feels about the way the world is and so on. And it's actually really quite interesting. No, it's very interesting. So I recommend that book. It's in my shop front as well. So if you're interested, you can get it from through Amazon. I'm putting a little bit of this copper colour on these leaves as well, because it looks rather nice. The nice thing about using this Sennelier ink is that it is has a body to it, and it doesn't just sink into the paper like these pens do. It has kind of texture. So we'll give him a little light in his eyes, gold as well, I think. And I could go on doing more of this. It's quite fun. Maybe I'll give him another row of... I could do more of that, but I think I'm going to stop there with that. But I will come back with the pen, as previously mentioned. And probably sensible, I don't always remember to do this, but probably sensible to test it out on a piece of paper first. And then I'm going to do irregular outline. You can use the Staedtler pens or something similar to that, even a Sharpie if you want. I have to turn that round, otherwise I'm going to touch the wet bits with my hands and don't want to do that. Okay, so I think that's probably where I'm going to leave it. I might put in a few more leaves. And before I take the final picture of it, I might colour some more of these in with copper. So if you notice any difference between this and the way it is in the final picture and on the thumbnail, that's because I will have added a few things. But anyway, that seems to be okay, so I think I'm going to leave it there. Today, with no preamble, no preparation, no messing around and wondering what the heck I'm going to do before I drive myself insane, I'm going to paint a fish. And this is my preliminary sketch, and I'm going to show you in this one how to actually transfer your own sketch using a light box or using the window onto your paper where you're going to do your painting. So first of all, I did this sketch, and you can download the sketch from my website. So if you go along to dianeantone.com for free, this is a free service that we offer. You can just go ahead and download the sketch, and that will give you a guide so you can get started on your project. And that's going to help you with the placement of the eye, for example, which is probably the trickiest thing. You're going to want a little bit of help with that probably, and maybe the fins and the general shape. But basically, you won't have too much trouble if you just do this freehand yourself. If you want, it's fine. So I'm just putting the bottom of the seabed there, and we'll put the seaweed in later. So then, in order to transfer this to my paper, I'm going to take a light box, but if you only have a window, you do this up against the window. There's our fish, and now I need my piece of paper. And I think I'll use a piece of Etivale, because this is going to be today's relaxation exercise. So least said, soonest mended. Yeah, the forest fires are over, so that's a good thing at the moment. And the temperature's gone back down to something remotely resembling normal, which is also great. So I'm just, as you can see, tracing around the lines that I just did. And if you don't have a light box, just hold the tracing paper up against the window, and then your piece of paper that you're going to paint on top of that, and you'll be able to see where all the lines are. You could probably even do that without tracing it, to be quite honest, if you've got a picture like this. You can put that on your light box and then go over the top like that. You don't have to trace it first. It just makes it a little bit easier. This paper, this Etival paper, is quite easy to trace through. Some paper is a bit thicker and you might have a bit more of a problem with it, but yes, I'll just give an indication of a couple of underwater thingy whatsits there. Weeds, grasses, seaweed, you name it. Paper doesn't need taping down really because it's not going to be getting terribly wet, and if it does buckle, it won't really matter. I think I'll use my Gallo paints today. Could use any set of paints. And I'm going to just wet those a bit so that they are ready to spring into action with Verve and Vim, two friends of mine. Everyone needs a good friend, and my friends are called Verve and Vim. And here I've got a messy palette with some other colours in, turquoise, for example, burnt sienna, and this is Naples yellow, which and that's a nice mixture. Naples yellow, I think I'm going to use as part of this painting. And the reason is we used Naples yellow the other day in the little landscape that we did, if you remember. And it has such a lot of body in it that it makes an interesting effect to paint into. Now, this one here, I think I painted the whole thing in Naples yellow and then I dropped some other colours into it. So I'm going to try that again and see if that still works. So we'll grab some water and pick up some Naples yellow and we'll just splash that in. This is where I get to sit down. There's an old lady sit down, that is. So we're just somewhat irregularly, we're just putting this in. And I don't know what way this one's going to go. I might do all sorts of embellishments on it, or I might like the way it looks once I've got to a certain point and not embellish it. So I don't know, who knows. I think if you let a painting go the way it wants to go and don't try to copy other people's work, take their idea and go with it. Don't obsess about looking like Creation CC or Ellen or anyone or me, especially not me. Goodness, no, far be it from me. Okay, so that's now covered with that. I'm going to pop in some turquoise. And I'm just going to drop it in and let it spread. And we're going to see exactly, well, not exactly, we're going to see roughly what's going to happen. I haven't done this quite like this before, so let's have a look and see. Put in some nice turquoise. It's going to run. It's going to mix and mingle. Okay, that's good. So far, so good. And then I think I've got, this is quinacridone red gold. Not just quinacridone gold, but quinacridone red gold. So maybe we'll put some of that in. And because the Naples yellow is so thick, you're getting a kind of some sort of resistance. So I'm going to put in some quinacridone gold now, which is an easy blender. Quinacridone loves to mix with people. It's a very friendly paint. There we go. So we've covered the whole fish now. And let's put some some darks here at the end of the tail. I don't know if people are interested in any way in painting fish, but it's a good, just a good vehicle for trying out your watercolour mixes, really. You've got to paint something, haven't you? So we'll just make his fin a bit bigger. And perhaps down here too. Oh yeah, and oh, I think he needs to be a bit more bulbous in the front here, so we'll just bring him around a bit like that. And then I'm going to let that do its thing. It's not going to look anything like the one I did before. And I'm just doing something which I like to do, which is to just put drops of water with using the brush at random on my wash. And then that pushes things around a bit more still. So we'll see what happens with that. And while we're waiting, let's do a little bit of sky. So we'll grab a little bit of sky up here because the fish is just under the surface of the water, we could say. So we'll just do that to indicate the sky, just something really rough. And then we could, maybe we'll use a little bit of, this is fig green. And I'm just going to use that as a sort of watery background. Just be a bit careful here because it will go bazonkers if you touch it. And then on top of this very rough wash, we will put some seaweed. Then at the bottom, let's go back to our Naples yellow for the sand. And a bit of sort of contrast with some burnt sienna for rocks and things, and a bit of quinacridone, so just warm that up a little bit. I might drag this down a bit here too. Maybe he's got one of those tendril things that a lot of fish have dangling down the front. Okay, and now let's put some seaweed in. And if we want them to look like they're in the background, we might put them into the wet paint so that they kind of bleed a little bit. And we'll just have fun doing snakes. This is a nice colour, olive green deep. And this is another nice colour. This set of Gallo paints is really lovely, lovely. I love the greens in it. I think they're the best greens. And then let's put some, and they all mix together. So, and then we put some thin ones down the bottom here, just a few sea grasses. And then after I've done this, I'll let it dry a bit and then come in case of the fish, let it dry quite a lot and come in with some details. I really want to put his eye in, but I think I better wait until he's dry a bit more. So, so yeah, okay, he's going to sit and dry for a bit and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so he's completely dry now and I have rubbed out all the pencil lines that I can get rid of. And I'm just going to pick up some black gouache and paint in his eye or her eye. So you can do whatever kind of features you want, make her or him look any way you want, just by positioning the light in the eye. Just so. And then that'll do for now. We might want to adjust that later, but now I'm going to do the lips. And I think we're going to do them in olive green like I did before. Or maybe a sort of deep turquoise. I don't know, why not? A nice lippy person, green lipstick, why not? And then the next thing is to start to, well, anything really. You can begin to embellish and increase the amount of seaweed that you have. Here, as you just start and continue. You can put some circles on here because this is nice and thick, this one. Like that. And maybe we'll do another one like that. And then I think, excuse me, I put some rocks, stones, pebbles, different colours on the seabed. Maybe put some blue ones over here. I think I've done her lips a little bit too dark, but what I'll do is I'll just lift out a little bit of the colour. Use my brush. And when that dries anyway, it'll be a bit lighter, so not too much to worry about. Let's have, should we have some fig green leaves over here? I don't think you can have too much, really. And then, well, let's put some light fatter ones, lighter ones in here. Oh, and I wanted to put a little shoal of fish up here, just in the distance, so you can just not see any details, but just a few goldfish shoaling in the distance over there in orange. And then maybe if I can find the purple, which is, where is it? This one, I think. Yeah. Little shoals of purple fish over this side. The water, and I said it was the sky, but it's not really. It's the water near the top which reflects the sky. So there's fish floating in it. That was the point of that. She extemporized. And then I think we probably need to think about doing a bit of pen work now. So I'm going to get my fine liner and start doing this and that. And drawing bones in the fins. We don't need to go around the outside edge of it really, because the paint has kind of accumulated around the outside edges, so that's quite good. And I was thinking of using some gold here and there. This is Kuretake Gold Starry Colours. And you could, yeah, I think that might be quite nice. This dries much better than it looks when it's wet. So we can just add it anywhere we feel like it. And next thing we know, we've got a goldfish. Oh. When it's dry, it'll be shinier. I may give her some scales, that's the word. I want to, what's the word? I want to make a plea for the for the end of copying and the beginning of original, because your original work is far better than any copy anyone did. So be inspired by what I do, be inspired by what anyone does, but mostly be inspired from inside. A lot of people have been mentioning how they used to paint and then they gave it up and they're coming back to it after 30 years and finding a lot of enjoyment in that, and that's wonderful. And with all the inspiration that's out there now, it's so much easier to get into that trap of, oh, I want to paint like him or her. But you're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the process. You're doing it because you like the feel of the paint on the paper and you never know what you're going to create. Don't copy other people. That's where stress comes from. Look at the pictures on Pinterest, but don't copy them. Let them go into your psyche if you want and allow them to sit there in your mind so that your imagination is fed, but don't copy. I think that's what I believe. Of course, everyone is at liberty to disagree with me. One thing though, when you are painting, don't forget to stop after a while and let it dry, because it'll always look different when it's dry. Big bubbles these are, in case you were wondering. Big bubbles. And I might put some smaller ones in a minute. I think I'll grab my gold pen and see if I can make spirals there. Thing is, if you copy somebody else's work, you're always at the end of it going to say, oh, I didn't quite get it right. I didn't get it it wasn't as good as hers or his, because men do paint too. So that's depressing. And oh, I don't know. I've looked at so many people, beginners' work, and I've said to them, "Oh, that's I really love that," and they don't believe me because it doesn't look, as far as they're concerned, like the one they were copying. Oh dear. I should shut up. Give the fish some tails, just a few of them. I think a few spatters. I'll just get my rigger, if I can find it. Or this is a sword liner, I think that would do too. It's got a very, very long bristles, so they're not bristles, they're more like hairs. All right, a few spatters, because the water is full of tiny bubbles, isn't it? And you can use a brush like this very successfully for fine grasses. Really loading this up with gold today. That's the way I feel. Apparently, didn't realise that. There we are. Lots of good stuff. Today, been thinking about this for quite a while, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw and then paint a family of birds, so a baby bird and mummy and daddy. And first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch the design out, and then I will paint it and embellish it a little bit, and it's going to be an easy thing. And you can get the sketch to trace if you want from our website at dianeantone.com, no cost to you. And so I've got a piece of Bockingford here, Bockingford 140-pound watercolour paper, and just an ordinary Derwent pencil. And my idea was to have 3 birds and to have the mummy, the baby, and the daddy flying in with some dinner in his mouth. So I woke up this morning with the idea, and you know how it is so difficult to paint, to draw the eye of a bird. And it occurred to me this morning that maybe it might be easier sometimes to start with the eye, to actually draw in the eye before you draw anything else. So that's what I've been doing this morning. And so I am going to suggest that if you want to doodle a bird or something like that, put the eye in first, then draw the body, then the beak, and then think about the tail and the wings, and then pop in the legs and the feet. Just any old how. Don't be too worried about how you're going to do this. And then mummy's eye is going to be up here. And let's just sort of, relax about this, because it's supposed to be a matter of having fun, isn't it? Not worrying about the fine details of what you're doing. So mummy's got longer legs than the baby, because, well, she would have, wouldn't she? And then, so daddy is over here, and he's flying in, and he's all eyes. He's looking to see where he's going to land. And then we're going to have a nice big body, and then the wings out to the sides like that, and then his beak, and in his beak he has a worm Sorry if you're squeamish about worms. I certainly am. I don't like worms. And then his tail comes out there. And so that's that. That's our composition. And we're going to have some flowers growing down here, which you can do however you want, whatever comes to mind. And this is the kind of thing that you can do either fussy and finicky if you want to. If you're the kind of person that likes to put a lot of detail in, there's plenty of opportunity for that in a painting like this. Or you can do it very whimsical. And this one is going to be pretty loose and whimsical as well. So there we are. Now, as I say, I've done that on a piece of Bockingford, and we'll see how it goes. I have got a piece of Arches watercolour paper here too, but since this is such a sort of flight of fancy, I don't think we really need to do that. Colours. Pick some colours that you like and ones which will go together. I've got here some blues. This is ultramarine. This is cobalt. Then I've got pinks. You don't need both of those. Either of those will do. I've got opera and I've got permanent rose. And this is quinacridone violet and dioxazine mauve. So they're just purples. I've also got here a turquoise. That's another cobalt. You don't really need. No, I don't know what that is actually. Manganese. Don't want that. And this is sap green, perhaps for the leaves on the flowers. You could have a completely different approach. You could do it with golds and yellows and browns if you wanted to, or you could focus on greens or any colour. You could try to mix all sorts of different colours together, but that's actually harder. So I thought perhaps I would stick to something fairly, what's the word, easy to go, easy to mix. So let's move those out of the way, don't spoil clean pieces of paper. So we'll just get the main colour in. Now all we have to do is remember not to make the eyes wet, because we want to keep those nice and white. So we just paint round the eyes and make the whole body wet. And then decide whatever colour we want to use for Daddy, for the bird. And we might want to put in some cobalt. And let that spread. And then maybe when I did this before, I used some, what do you call it? Quinacridone gold, didn't I, on the other side of the bird. So I'm just going to pop some quinacridone there. I actually find it quite hard to paint without a yellow of some sort, shape or description. And quinacridone is actually my favourite because it's so clean. And even on Bockingford, it should blend quite well. So we won't touch that too much. We'll just let that do its thing. And then for the wings, I think I'm going to go with turquoise. Actually, I've just forgotten to wet the wings, so I'll just do that. Doesn't matter if you touch it and it bleeds a bit like that. It doesn't matter at all. So we'll just drop in some turquoise here for these wings. And you can adjust the shape of the outline of the wing as you go along if you want. It doesn't have to be exactly following the lines that you drew, because after all you drew them, so you can change them if you want. And then I'm going to just put some blobs on the back there for the tail feathers. And then afterwards I'm going to probably embellish that a little bit, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, now Mummy. And we will paint round that wing, paint her head, leaving the eyes. And what colour? Well, obviously she's got to be pink, so we'll go for Permanent Rose. And I'll put that here on her breast and let that spread. And then perhaps on her back we'll do quinacridone purple or dioxazine mauve. It's much for muchness, I think. I don't know if there's any difference, but so we'll do that. And then perhaps her tail could be blue or turquoise. What do you think? Maybe I'll mix a little bit of both. And then her wing. Now the crucial, excuse me for coughing, is, I don't know what that's all about, but it's all right, I'm not sick. The crucial thing is not to overwork this, so just leave it, because that's when you get the chance to have a cup of coffee or tea. We made some tea yesterday from something in the garden. We've been growing lemon balm or melissa, and because we do try to be, natural, we try and fail. But anyway, and so Tamsin said, oh, let's try that. And so we made some melissa tea, and it's actually really nice. I've noticed recently that the tea that I'm just wondering what colour to do this. Let's do his chest yellow, shall we? The tea that you buy, being English, we try to drink tea rather than coffee, but fail because it's usually so horrible. So I'm going to put, we've got yellow and blue up there, so shall we put yellow and pink? And when you open up the tea bags, it's just powder inside. It's just awful. So we tried to buy more expensive type from online somewhere, and it turned out to be not much better. So if you can grow it in the garden, why not? Okay, so we're going to have to let those dry, and then we will come in with some pen. I should be able to paint that worm though, and maybe their beaks. So we'll give them yellow beaks. There goes the French Air Force. Don't know if you can hear that. Oh, and I could put their legs in, couldn't I, already? So I've got, this is a Stettler pigment liner, which for some reason just recently has started to bleed. I don't know why, when it touches water, so I'm going to be careful and not let it touch anything I've already painted. I don't know, I'm going to swap to Sigma liners. I've ordered some on Amazon. If you are interested in any of the things that I buy, or I use rather, go to my Amazon shop. Go to Amazon/Diane Antone, or I'll put the link in the description below. And I've got there almost every single thing that I use in the studio is there. So if you're interested in any of the things that I paint with or on, then you will be able to find that there. So, okay, so there's their legs. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to have to let it dry because some of the most interesting elements on your painting will happen when you're doing nothing to it. So while I'm waiting, I'm going to go away in a minute and turn you off and come back later. Meet you on the other side. That's what they say when on the crochet channels. I'll meet you on the other side, or I'll meet you at the end. Well, you might. Depends whether you end up in the same place, I suppose. I was watching a crochet channel last night from there's a boy called Jonah. It's called Jonah's Hands. You've probably seen it if you're a crochet person. Can hardly have missed it. If I saw it, everyone must have. He's got a channel now. He's got about 150,000 followers. He started doing this when he was like 8 or something, and he's a marvel. He's an amazing kid. You should, if you don't already know him, look him up, Jonah's Hands. He makes you think that there's hope for the world, to be honest. Watching him, it makes you think, yeah, you know what? I can leave the world in good hands if some of the hands, even only some of the hands, are like his. That's rather an appropriate name for his channel, Jonah's Hands. Leave the world in Jonah's hands. It will be okay. Because you do worry, don't you? That it's all going to go pear-shaped. Okay, I'm going to turn this off and come back when it's dry. So this is nice and dry now, and of course the paper has started to curl up, so I'm just going to use some pretty washi tape here, which coordinates perfectly with my painting, just to stick it down to the board. I've got a piece of plywood underneath here, which I put on my table to try to pretend to protect, yes, the table, because of course the table isn't actually protected. Every now and again I repaint it. It used to be pine coloured. If you look at some of the early videos from about a year and a half ago, you'll see the same table, but it was pine coloured, and now it's white because I've painted it with chalk paint, and I paint it again every few weeks because it gets mucky. And this is my piece of plywood, which I honestly think it's a good idea to use. It's just thin plywood like that, and I've just painted one side of it. That's the other side. Again, with chalk paint, gives me a nice matte surface. It's very useful for using for the filming, but it's also great to stick your paper to when you're doing your paintings. So anyway, as I said, it's dry, and I've held it down with a bit of tape, and I am now going to do the next thing. And what is the next thing? I'm wondering whether to put in the eyes. I think I might put in the eyes so that we've got some sort of focal point on the birds. So nice big eyes, nice big circle, and we'll do a very big pupil there like that, and we will embellish that further later. And then Mummy has another big eye like that, and she's kind of looking down. And actually that should be a little bit bigger, I think. And then Daddy's coming in, and he's got two big eyes like that, and he's looking down as well. If you want to change the details of the eyeballs, if you feel it's wrong, you can always cover it up with some bleed-proof white. This P.H. Martin's stuff is pretty good at covering up any mistakes. I'm going to take I've got to paint this worm. I'm going to take a number 3 brush here, and I'm going to paint the worm pinkish. I just feel it will make it less obnoxious if he's pink. I don't like worms. When I was a biology teacher, I used to have to teach children about worms and dissecting them, and that was a trauma, total trauma. Right. Next thing is to use the pen to do the outlines and so on and so forth. These feathers on the back here, they need some veins, so that is to say V-A-N-E-S, not V-E-I-N-S. And those are the feathers for the back of the bird. And then we're just going to go around loosely, very loosely, sometimes going inside the line and sometimes going outside the line, because that's kind of the way I quite like to do it. But if you are the kind of person who wants to be precise and do it, you know, some people are a bit more pernickety. It's not a bad word, pernickety. I think it's quite a nice word. It makes me think of Laura Ingalls Wilder, sort of word that they would use, isn't it? Or the Waltons, sort of nice old-fashioned word, which I think we use in England as well. I think you use it in America, don't you? Pernickety. Snickety. I used to read, I used to love the Bobbsey twins. Anyone here used to be a great fan of the Bobbsey twins? I was, oh my goodness, I don't know. I think I was born in the wrong country. I used to love those books. And the Hardy Boys and all of that. I used to read all of those things. I love the Bobbsey twins, though. I think I might see if I can find a book and read another one. Read one again. In England, the English, the ones I used to love to read as a child was Jennings and Derbyshire, all about the little boys at boarding school. I wanted to go to boarding school. My parents wouldn't send me away. Horrible. They wouldn't. Okay, so now we've outlined all the birds, and I think probably if that's dry, we should rub out the pencil marks. Try to rub them off of the wings and everything too, a little bit. It doesn't matter too much. Just the eyes, really. Okay. I use, this is a shaving brush that Sylvia sent me from Germany, brand new, obviously, and vintage. It's very useful for brushing off the bits from the birds. So now, oh, hang on a second. I don't want that line there. Now, what am I going to do? I thought I would add a little bit of gold. I thought I might add a little bit of gold around the eyes. And on the beaks. And this is the kind of thing that you can just, you know, really go silly with, because we can put feathers on the wings. I quite like to do them like that. And you can draw details on the tail feathers, like this. And because, you know, this is baby bird, she's going to take after her mum. So she's got the same kind of arrangement on her wings. And then she could have markings down her chest. And let's see, oh yes, her tail feathers need there. This is a Sigma, I think, hybrid gel. That's okay, not bad, not a bad thing. And then maybe we'll just do some what do you call those? Spirals on their backs. And Daddy's over here waiting patiently for his turn. put some gold on his wings. I think this would be a nice one to do with grandchildren or children too, because it's really simple and quite pretty. Don't leave out the worm. And then we'll put some spirals on his back too. If you don't have a gold pen, you could do it with perhaps with a coloured pencil. That would also look good. And or you could do it with a brush, but it would take a long time. Or you could do some other kind of embellishment. Like I said, you can adjust the expression on their faces with the way the pupils in the eyes are, and it's amazing actually how a small change will make a huge difference. I'm not quite sure about this baby bird's eyes, so I'm going to just come in with a bit of white and show you what I meant about changing it. I want her to look up a little bit more, so just try covering that over a bit. Sometimes you have to come in twice with it, so we'll see how that goes when it's dry. And now the flowers, and let's have some little pretty pink flowers. I was going to say some of the, if you've got any of those felt tip brush pens, you know, the brush, like a water brush, like this, which you could have used to do this painting with. You could use one of those to do the embellishments with if you haven't got a Sigma or whatever. So little pink flowers with green leaves. I'm just using a number 3 small round here. All the equipment that I use is listed in the description below. And I know there was something I was supposed to talk about today, but I've forgotten what it was. I was going to mention that we've just started Patreon, which is now going to be available for people. You don't think that we're not stopping anything from here. This is not going to change. But if you want a little bit more, and we're not changing the membership for YouTube. The YouTube membership remains exactly. In fact, actually, we've added some new perks to the YouTube membership. So there is that. And, but no, we're also going to do Patreon. Everyone does Patreon. You've got to have Patreon. I don't want to be left out. I've got to go to the party. And maybe we'll just put a tiny little bit of green along here for them to stand on. And then, of course, for the sky, we have the requisite blue dots. And there we are. 3 little birdies. Daddy coming home with dinner, Mummy and baby bird. Today we're not going to paint this, and we're not going to paint this. I'm going to do a painting incorporating this idea and this idea, probably in different colours, I'm not sure yet. Anyway, so what I have here is yesterday I was doodling around, and I did this sort of wet in wet shape here in the middle of this piece of paper. And you might like to try this yourself too. I just started with a circle of one shade of green, and then I kept adding sort of continuous overlapping kind of semicircles and things and letting them blend. And then when it was all completely dry, I came in with my white pen, my gel pen, this one here from Signo, and I just did some doodles on it. And that was just a fun way to spend a little while yesterday. I heartily recommend that as a sort of, warm up before you start to paint, and it might stimulate some ideas or set something turning in your brain. And then around the outside of it, I just painted a few leaves that happened by accident. Actually, I think I started with those leaves. I had done a rose. So this is just a sort of messing around thing, trying out different greens. And I was using the Paul Rubens set. No, I wasn't. I was using, what was I using? Yes, I was. I was using the Paul Rubens set for that, I think. But it doesn't matter. Could have used anything. And I just chose two colours of green. There was just olive green and phthalo blue. And I just mixed and matched those and got different colours. So that was that. That's number one. And then just now I did this, which I did with this paint box. And it's all about colour, isn't it? And choosing the right colours that go together. And if you limit yourself a bit, you'll find that your paintings will come out more harmoniously, which may or may not be what you want. But if you want harmony and sort of to keep the range of colours fairly narrow, then it's a good idea to have a paint box. A lot of you I know have got a lot of paint boxes with different brands and so on and so forth. And I did something a little bit outrageous, I suppose. I'm a bit of an anarchist, really, at heart. I like to break all the rules. Show me a rule and I'll find a way to break it. So to my neighbour today, that if she shuts her cats indoors and goes away and leaves them a week at a time, I will be breaking her window, and I mean it. Anyway, honestly, I kid you not. Anyway, to get back to paint, don't digress, Diane. Do not digress. Just because you're an anarchist, it doesn't mean to say you should digress. So I had a whole lot of paints in different tins and things. So I decided to put all the blues in one tin, and I've got another one similar to this with all the reds in. And the beautiful thing about that is that it will give you an analogous design if you use only these paints. Whereas when you go to something like this, which is a beautiful Gallo box, you've got everything from lemon yellow all the way through to purple in the same box. And there's a tendency to be tempted to put colours together like orange and purple, for example, which don't work, because if you put them together, they turn into grey. So you have to keep them apart. And that somehow becomes much more difficult if you're not experienced. So as a beginner, I think people should encourage, I think us teachers, we should encourage people to paint in analogous palettes. Just a thought. So anyway, so that's what I did this morning, just to try out the greens with a little touch of the violet, which is here, because that doesn't really belong with the reds. So I put it with the blues and the greens. Are you following me? I hope so. Anyway, so today what I thought I would do, I looked at my circular design here and I thought, well, that's very nice, but what can I do with that? So I thought, okay, I'll have a look through a few books and see if I can get some ideas. And I've decided I'm going to do something really radical. I'm going to paint a turtle or a tortoise, but I'm going to do it like this. So wish me luck. I'm going to start now. I've got a paintbrush here. This one happens to be a Drawwell Maestro. It's a black handled Drawwell brush, which is very nice. Some of you will already have bought the Drawwell red ones, which are also absolutely great. They're very inexpensive and they're perfect for what we do. And I've got my white pen and I've got a little mixing palette there. And I've got my paints here. And I'm not going to bother too much about what colour I use. I'm just going to start painting. I've drawn this turtle. Hopefully you can see that. I will put the sketch of this on the blog, on the website, dianeantone.com, if you want, once it's finished. And then I'm going to do a border of flowers or something like that around the outside edge do something. I mean, it's up to you. If you do this painting, you'll do it whatever way you want to do. I'm not going to paint it wet in wet. I'm going to just paint it and allow the colours to flow as they want to. So I'm going to try and do this as randomly as possible, and I'm going to try to do it mostly in blues and greens, and we'll just see what happens. And I'm going to do what I did yesterday with this design here, and I'm going to start in the middle, because what I'm planning on doing, hopefully it'll work, is once it's dry, I will come in with my white pen and embellish it. So we'll see what happens. So I'm painting, by the way, on a piece of Arches watercolour, Arche, if you like. And this is just a really good way to see how different the paints are, and just to, enjoy putting colour on paper. And you see colours that you don't like that one. It might work out in the end. You never know. And I'm just picking them up at random. What's that? That's phthalo blue, I think. I don't know what the names of these colours all are anymore. So mixing greens and blues, just for fun. Weather's terrible today. It's blowing a gale out there. I don't think it's quite as bad as it's been in America, but you can probably hear the rain and the wind in the distance. Yeah, so I'm just carrying on with this. These colours are a mixture of, I've got some Schminke, I've got some Winsor & Newton, I think there's a couple of Senneliers or something like that. These are all my traditional old-fashioned paints, and they do tend to dry lighter. Not sure about that big blob of green there. I think I might put some blue over the top of that. They do tend to dry lighter. We leave that light patch in the middle there. I'm going to paint over that green. I don't like that green. It's not that I've got anything against that green particularly, but it didn't look right there, did it? Okay, so there's the body of the turtle, or tortoise. And then I think probably his body, yeah, should we do his head in a sort of light green? And again, I'm going to just put the different shades of green next to one another, greeny blue, turquoise, and so on. And we will do pen work over the top of most of this, because I think it's a perfect example of something that benefits from having pen work done on top, because don't turtles and tortoises have rather scaly feet and legs? I think they do. So anyway, I'm just painting in his legs here. Doesn't matter if it blurs a bit where it joins, that's fine. Blurring is good. And so then his leg at the back here. Give him a little greenish kind of tail. Okay. Right, so that can go over there. And then my other painting, this one is going to be my inspiration for the leaves. So while that's drying, we'll paint some leaves around the outside edge. And let's see, we're going to go to the greens. And I think for something like this, it's a really, really good idea to exercise a little bit of patience, or go slower, and just change the colour for every single leaf. And then you can bring in the centre stem and let it blur. Like that. And we'll be able to do what do you call it? Lines on top as well. Do some little ones like that. And if you feel they're a bit boring, just drop a little bit, do a bit of wet in wet, and just drop a bit more paint into what you've already painted. The Arches paper is very good at accepting that. You can do as much of that as you want. It just gives you more vibrancy. And then when we come in with the pen, we can sharpen it up a little bit. I got the idea for doing something like this from the Daisy, what's her name? You know, Being a Wildflower, that book. She's got a turtle in there. She did it in a completely different way. But I borrowed the idea from her, but, you know, I mean, a turtle's a turtle. There's no, what do you call it? No copyright on turtles. When I've finished painting these leaves and berries, I will probably put a hairdryer on there. If you want more accurate lines in your paint, then you probably want to use a hot press paper. I'm not going to any effort to predict what colour is going to come out of the end of my brush. Just making patterns. Bit of wet in wet there, let it blur. And do the same down here. Oh, my hand's going numb. Haven't had any chocolate. Whoops, sorry Zen, did I disturb you? Haven't had any chocolate today, so I'm not feeling very verbose, but I'm sure some people will appreciate that. Maybe Tamsin will put some music on this one to fill in the gaps. Okay, so let's just make the eye socket a bit rounder. We're not going to make this here turtle particularly accurate. He's going to be, you know, an easygoing bird. That's that. Let's give him some toenails. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to dry that with the hairdryer. So we just put a couple of little butterflies in, just really simple ones, like little bows. At the top there, and yeah, so now this is dry, I think, and move that out the way for a second. So I need my white pen, and we will begin, I think, here, and hopefully it will work. You could use a brush and do this by painting. If you use one of these pens, you need to remember something I don't always remember, which is just to use it as lightly as you possibly can. Just drag it very lightly across the surface. For some reason, they work better that way. And go fairly slowly, I think. It's probably wise. We just go around giving him his shell sections like that. And then the next thing would be to, I don't know, we could embellish his legs. We could just, first of all, I just feel like doing this first. Give him his scales on his legs like that. And this one too. This kind of painting is such a good thing to do with children because it's so good for them to develop their skills with a pen as well as a brush. I think it's wonderful to think that there are kiddies out there who are learning to paint from the videos on YouTube. Isn't that fantastic? Okay, so then we're going to do patterns on there, a bit like what I've got on here. So we can start at the top. And I think maybe flowers. And then we can do circles. And we could do spirals. Very good for a shell because I think they have a certain sort of spiral pattern, these shells, actually. But we don't want to do that on all of them. Some of them we'll put stars. 5-pointed stars. And then maybe up here we might have some leaves. And so on. This one probably could be a bit smaller. There we go. Perhaps we'll do dots. You could do as much or as little as you want on here. You don't have to do them all. Let's do some overlapping circles. And here we can have some big spirals, perhaps. How's he looking? And you could have some flowers done like that. And we could have some dots and spirals. And we could have some zigzags. And on this one, maybe we'll just do something small, like some little half flowers like that, like a border. There we are. And then we'll put some scales on his neck. There we are. And now we're going to go to the leaves and put in some veins into the leaves, and we'll go round the berries, which gives them a bit more shape. And like that. And we need something on the butterflies. They need also some, let's put some golden. Well, that doesn't show up very well, does it? Okay, let's go for black. There we are. Black antennae for the butterflies. There we are. And down here. I quite like it if you do the vein and you also go round the outline of the leaf. I quite like that. I think that, I don't know, it just seems to work for me. And to go round the berries with a nice round circle done freehand. You can put so much personality into something like this. Yours will never be the same as anyone else's. I know there's a lot of people out there that are very fond of tortoises. We used to have one when I was a child. I haven't had one as an adult, but I think they make very good pets. Apparently. There we are. So I think that's enough for that. I think we could add a bit more. You could put in some, well, he could have some scales on his head. Perhaps he needs a few bits of texture up here. And he's got a nice smile. That happened more or less by accident. And he's got a sort of beak, which they have. They look sort of beaky, don't they? If there's one thing I can do, it's paint a circle, well, an oval. And so I'm going to give myself a break and meditate again upon the cat. Now, I've got a set of A Gallo paints here, which I'm very lucky to have. And this is it swatched out, and this is it in reality. And I've just picked up some chromite brown I'm going to have to put that next to it so that I know what I'm painting with, some chromite brown. And when this cat is going to have his tummy lifted out a little bit to make it a little bit lighter, and I'm just making this up as I go along, so then I'm going to get some more chromite brown mixed with some quinacridone gold, red gold. So that'll be kind of darker, and then I'm going to give him some stripes and a tail and some feet and some colour around his face. And then we're going to let him dry a little bit. We'll see how he turns out. And then the next one, what shall we do? Shall we do this one in Notturno, which is a lovely mauve colour. I'm not sure what colour you would call that. You can mix these colours yourself with your ordinary set of paints, but sometimes it's nice to have them on hand. And then I'm going to give him some more stripes, perhaps in the same colour, only more intense. So that's also Notturno full strength. And then so we'll give him the same kind of tail, but maybe we'll have it lying down. So dark at the end and then a little bit lighter. And his feet. This one's got a fluffy tail. Then he wants some ears. If you don't want those to be stripes, they could be paws. These cats are being painted on Bockingford 100% cellulose paper from the Bockingford mill. And now this one I want to do in a kind of beige colour, and the one thing that the Gallo doesn't have in this set is Naples yellow. So I've got some Naples yellow here from Schminker, I think. And we will complement that with chromite brown. Okie dokie. So there's 3 cats. Now, next thing, I'm going to take my dip pen with nothing on it, and we're just going to give them some character to their tails. There's no ink on this pen, it's just scratching into the paint. And where the paint has started to dry, you'll get lines showing up, lighter or darker, depending on how much the paint has dried. So we'll just then use some of the paint to just draw around his ears. Then I have a dip pen, so I'll use some ink. This is Sennelier Walnut ink. We'll start on this end, shall we? And these cats are going to be funky cats. Put a little bit more dark in his tail. And his eyes are going to go about here, I think. And then the nose. So then we want to put some whiskers in. This paper's quite damp now that the paint has hit it, so the pen's not working terribly well, but that's fine. So now we do the ears on this one, and the eyes, and the nose, and the mouth. I didn't really finish this one, did I? With his outlines. The idea is the paint and the lines don't necessarily match up, so it gives it a bit more freedom. These are a little bit similar to the ones we did the other day. And then our little Siamese at the end here. And just draw some lines with the pen for them to sit on. There's a lot of texture here where those paints melded together. When the eyes are dry, I can put a light into the eyes. And I think this one might want a little bit more colour here. Okay, so there we are, 3 cats. We'll let that dry and come back and see what we need to do. Well, it's not quite dry yet, but I just suddenly thought I do need to do some flowers for them to be sitting amongst. No question about that. And then after these lines are dry, we will probably colour those in, probably gold. So cats amongst the tulips, tiptoeing no doubt if they're anything like ours. Our cats like to sneak up on people. and each other. Got 5 of them, so there's always a cat somewhere. If you are a member of the channel, you'll see videos of the cats from time to time, which is quite entertaining sometimes, if you're interested in cats. It's been one of those days today where we have been constantly interrupted by this and that. Okay. So now I'll let that dry. Okay, so these putty cats are dry now, and I'm just going to take a little bit of P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White and just put a little highlight on the nose. I've already done the highlights on the eyes, the whites of the eyes, which cats don't really have, but it looks better when you give them to them. And then we will switch to the gold, which I want to use to colour in the flowers. And I'm just using a size 3 round brush. This is a round synthetic, as to say, nylon draw well brush. Need a quite small one because I'm doing something fairly small. Trying to keep inside the lines. Not something I do much of, but for this sort of need to. You can always go over the outside lines again afterwards if you cover too much of them. This gold paint from Jean Haynes, Daniel Smith, that is to say, is quite good. It's quite opaque and it dries quite shiny and quite nice. You could use the Kiritaki starry colours as well, if you have that. A lot of people have that. I've got that one too. Maybe I'll give the cats a few specks of gold on their tails just to lighten them up a little bit. In the middle there, where it could be said to be catching the light. I think that one probably she wants a kind of more of a light gold. This is Mau Mau, this one. Come on, let's have some opacity here, Jean. Yeah, this is Mau Mau, our Siamese. Okay. And I think that's probably about it. They've got their whiskers, they've got their eyes, nose, mouth, tails, and got their flowers for companions. So I think we'll call that a day. You could do more, you could make them a little bit more accurate, but I quite like the kind of funky, random, inky sort of effect. You could come back in with a bit more ink if you wanted to as well. Today we're going to paint a sheep. This is one of our sheep from our farm here. Well, it could be. We have Jacob's sheep here, and this is kind of a little bit like one of ours called Dora. Okay, so the paint I'm going to use for this today is Quor. This, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, Q-O-R. And I've only got 5 colours of this. This was a trial set that somebody kindly gave me. And I've got burnt sienna, which I'm going to use in combination with ultramarine blue to give me a nice a soft brown like this and a darker brown like that from those two colours. And then I'm going to use the yellow, which is Hansa Yellow Light, mixed with, again, the ultramarine blue to do the green. And so that's how we're going to do this painting. This is interesting paint because it spreads amazingly. It's got a life of its own. It goes spraying. So I have already done this painting twice. So I'm going to put that one to one side. And here's my tracing of the above painting. And if you want the sketch, which is already done, already for you, that will be going up online. And that's free of charge for you from the website dianeantone.com. So first thing to do is to just wet the outline of the sheep. And I'll go around her ears and round her eye. And this is obviously very stylized, a cartoon type of whimsical sort of sheep. So we'll just do that. And then I'm going to do this in stages, but first of all, I'm going to mix some ultramarine with some burnt sienna. And that's about right. And then we're going to drop it. And you can see what I mean about spraying. Of course, every sheep is going to be different in terms of the colour of their fleece. So all I'm doing is not really painting this, I'm just allowing it to spread, just guiding it onto the wet body of the sheep, which I'd already wetted. And we might want to just take the colour right up into those curvy bits like that. And then, as I did on the one I already did, I mixed up then some thicker, much thicker, darker brown, and then just drop that in like that to give me her variation in the colour of her fleece. Just drop that in like that, and then basically that's when you have to be brave and go away and let it do its thing. So we'll just paint her ears as well. There we are. And then yet another little bit more blue in with the brown. And we'll just pop her legs in nice and dark. And you can see that ultramarine plus burnt sienna, and this works with any brand, not just Quor, will give you almost black. And then, because I've allowed it to touch, we will get some spreading there into the fleece. So now is the time to say goodbye for a few minutes while this spreads and does its thing. So I'll be back shortly. So while that's drying, I'm just going to pick up a little bit of ultramarine, just mixed up there, and I'm just going to indicate some clouds in the sky. Don't want to do anything very exciting with that, just leave that to blur a little bit. Just a bit of sky. And then I was going to say the bottom part of the painting, I'm going to decorate it with some metallic colour, and this is the Jean Haynes colours here. This is the one that looks like this. The Jean Haynes All That Shimmers set, and we'll probably use this colour here, which is kind of coppery, golden sort of colour. There's also a silver. And so we'll come in and do that at the end. Okay, so I've let this dry a little bit, and now if you've ever wondered what to do with an old pen that doesn't work anymore, this is a Staedtler pigment liner that I have abused, and it now has pretty much run out of ink. So in order to give this young lady some fleece, having let this dry a little bit, I'm going to come in with the pen that doesn't work, and I'm just going to do scribbly lines to indicate the texture of the fleece all over this sheep's fleece. And we're just, in some places where it's more dry, it will go, hardly see it at all. It will just be sort of a little bit visible. But in other places where it's still wet, you get dark lines. So you get a mixture. You get a mixture of light and dark. And all you're doing is scratching into the paint. And then at the end, when you feel like it, if you feel like it, you can also add some gold or silver lines. And for that, I might use this pen here, which is a hybrid gel that makes gold lines, which we might want. So that, although that pen doesn't have any ink in it, it does still have a use. So she's coming along quite nicely. And I can now think about doing the hills in the background. So it's up to you what colour you use. But it's quite a nice soft green if you just mix a little bit of Hansa yellow with ultramarine. And the first one, when I did that one, I just went over the flower. So I think I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to paint over the flower and then into the background like that. And I should put a little bit more colour in there, keeping away from the legs because they're not quite dry yet. And then you can either make the next one darker or lighter. The next hill, I mean. Or you could make it a bit more greyish. Maybe we'll do that. And with this one, because the flower isn't quite so detailed, I'm going to try and paint around it. Oh, I didn't mention we're using Etival, the paper. It's Canson Clairefontaine Etival paper. And then we need a little bit more green for the foreground. And it's up to you exactly what colours you use. Just use whatever. Whatever you feel. So that's that. Now we have to wait for all of those things to dry. And then when that's dry, we'll be able to put the flowers in. Meanwhile, I can take a pen. This is 0.1, that should be okay. And we're going to draw around her ear. Around the other ear. A little bit tricky. And her nose. And her eye. And now when she's dry, I'll give her some eyelashes, but I'm not going to try to do that because it's super difficult to get my hand around like that. So I'm just going to, now really am going to go and leave her to dry completely, and then we'll come back and finish her off later. Okay, so this is now completely dry. It's the next day, so I know it's completely dry. It's been drying overnight. And it's time now to do the final touches for this little painting. And for that, I've still got my Jean Haynes All That Shimmers set here. If you don't have that colour from Jean, you can obviously, you could use this this set. This is the Kuretake Starry Colours. That would work equally as well. These are all very good, nice opaque, shiny colours. I've also got my my gold pen here, which I'm going to use in a second as well. I've tried to stick this down a little bit with some washi tape, but the washi tape doesn't seem to be terribly keen on holding it down at the moment. So I'll just, excuse my arms. It's a bit chilly this morning, although it's going to get up to the high 70s at least today. But at the moment it's still a bit chilly in the studio, so I've got my fleece on. Okay, so what I'm going to do first, I think several things I want to do. I'm just going to give her a couple of very tiny eyelashes there. Make her eye a little bit bigger. Like that. And I'm just going to enhance, make her nose a little bit darker. Like that. And then you could draw in the outlines for the flowers first and then colour them in, or you could do the outlines afterwards. So it's a bit tricky to decide. I think I'll probably paint them first. So what I'm going to do is we're going to paint a nice little gold flower here. And the good thing about these paints is that they are opaque. And so they go over the background that I painted in yesterday. And you don't see the green through, really. There we are. And this one here, the tulip. Then I'm going to get some green. This is kind of greenish gold, mix that with a little bit of green. It's gone a little bit wet. I think I put a little bit too much water on there this morning. And then I'm going to take the gold pen and just do a few squiggles on here to lighten that up a little bit. A little bit more oomph. I might put a little bit on her ear. Like that. And then I'm going to put some gold down here. So give some texture to the ground. Some stones, whatever. And I think I might just outline this with this gold pen. I was going to do it in black, but I've changed my mind. There we are. Then perhaps we might put a couple of little birds in the sky. And I think that's pretty much it. Today I'm going to do a little bit of fun, just a bit of a play. And we're going to do this funky little pelican with a seagull with his friend by the sea. And what I'm going to do here is I I did the drawing. I'll show you the process of how this was figured out this morning. I was sketching in a completely different notebook, came up with this idea. So then what I did was, and you can do the exact same thing, I then traced that onto tracing paper like this. And then now I'm going to use my light box, which is this little gizmo here, which has got a light behind this screen. You put the tracing paper. You could do this with the print that you've done from one of my downloads from the website. And then you put your piece of watercolor paper on top, and then you go over those lines that you have drawn. So you can see there my tracing, which I've already done just to save a little bit of time, which looks basically like this. Now, if you want to, you can do what I've done and go over those lines in quite heavy ink like that. And then when you then colour it in with your watercolours or your water brush pens or whatever you choose to use, you'll have something that looks like this, which has a kind of cartoon effect kind of thing, which is quite nice in its way. And here's another one that I did. This one's on watercolour paper. This one's on ordinary, quite thin paper. They both work. Make a nice card for a child. So, yes, let's get started with that then. This is the light box, and I'll have a link to this in the description below, or you can go to our Amazon shop on amazon.com/shop/Diane Antone Studio, and I've got those listed on there for you. So, okay, here we are then. We've got our little pelican and our little seagull, and I'm going to just paint this very, very simply. Sorry about the shaking. That seems to be the dog walking up and down. We've got the door tightly closed, and stop scratching, Lottie, and paper on the window to keep the sun out because it's over 30 degrees here today. That's in the shade. And we've got that all week. It's quite unheard of for France, this part of France. Anyway, stop wittering. Okay, I've got here my little palette of summer colours. We've got cobalt blue. This is red. This is cadmium red and permanent rose. Excuse me. This is just cadmium orange, Windsor violet, sap green, turquoise blue, fly, quinacridone gold, lemon yellow, cadmium lemon, rather, and background to cobalt blue. And this little dish is available also on Amazon and also listed in our shop. If you go via our shop, we get a small commission, so that's always useful. Helps to support the channel. So you could paint this either in a realistic way, a semi-realistic way, or a whimsical way, or whatever. The fish are a little bit whimsical, so it would definitely, and obviously the pelican is not what you would call, neither of them are what you would call realistic, so I guess it is pretty whimsical. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of ultramarine blue from my other palette. You could use cobalt, but my cobalt is a little bit grubby, so I'm just going to indicate some sky there and just soften those edges a little bit. I'm painting on, what am I painting on? This is Clairefontaine Etival watercolour paper, 100% cellulose, perfectly good for something like this. And now let's plunge into the water where we all want to be at the moment. Makes you think about installing swimming pools when the weather's like this, you know. So we'll just plunge in with the orange of the pelican's beak. I know this is a bit exaggerated, but this is whimsical, so we don't care. And then we'll do the same kind of thing for the beak of the seagull. And then since I've got orange on my brush, I'm going to pop in some feet and legs, just like that. Just like that. Just like that, yeah. Does anyone remember Tommy Trinder? Some of you English people out there, I think it was Tommy Trinder, wasn't it, who used to say, just like that. Yes. Oh, I'm showing my age. This is a super quick painting. It really is. This is just a super quick one because every now and again you have to do a super quick one. Got another longer one coming up soon. So then I'm going to do stripes on the lighthouse, and I don't believe in painting inside the lines, so I'm not trying to keep inside my lines at all. And when this is done, when the painting is done, I'm going to go around with excuse my voice, it's very dry here at the moment, with my pen and do some ink lines. Just checking that I've got everything on the camera. That's better. Sometimes you just get this feeling that you're doing everything wrong. Right, so we need some greeny blue. So I'm going to mix some turquoise with some cobalt blue and a little bit of sap green to give us a nice sea green kind of colour. Something like that. And I'm just going to dash in at the back here the horizon line. And then I don't want to be too precious about the waves. We're just indicate a few sort of wave-like things. And down here as well, since I've got the colour on my brush rather than mixing it again. So this is a nice green, isn't it? That's, like I said, that's cobalt blue with a little bit of turquoise and a dash of sap green. And then I'm going to use a similar kind of colour for the shadow, except I want that a little bit bluer. Yeah, that's better, a bit bluer. For the shadow on the bottom part and the back of the neck of the pelican, and we'll just put a little bit there as well. And just soften that line a bit. And I'm going to use a little bit of that also on a little bit more blue on the seagull. Just soften those lines like that. Then we'll let that dry, and then I'll bring in the dark colours for the accents on the wings and that. Then we need a sort of brownish kind of colour. So I'm going to mix some violet with some quinacridone just to give us the brown for the piece of wood that the bird is standing on. You can do that any colour you like. It could just as easily be grey or whatever you want. And as you go along, you'll notice that your colour choices will determine what you do next. Now the fish. Shall we do the fish orange or red? Reddish orange, something like that to make them stand out. Goldfish, like gold, like koi. So we just do them in a sort of orangey colour because it's a nice contrast. There's not a lot of paint in this picture. And then, since I've got that on my brush, I'll just come in again and do a second layer on the feet of the bird, birds, and second layer on the pelican's beak, and there. And then I want to pick up, this is an extra colour that I've got here. I've got a little bit of Payne's Grey, no, neutral tint this is, could be Payne's Grey, could be black, whatever, doesn't matter. And we'll just drop in some black there for the pelican's tail and his wing. And I don't know, do they have a little bit of, they might do, and then the seagull. And the wing, and the other wing there. And then, well, we could do the eyes with our brush or else with ink. Something like that. And now we're going to go to the pen. So I'll grab my Micron. I think I probably want a slightly bigger one than that. That's a 0.05. This is a 0.3. Let's try that, shall I? The good thing about these is that they don't run. Let's start at the top and put in a couple of seagulls in the sky. And I think it's always a good idea to have 3 birds rather than 2. And so now this is where we let our hand shake as much as we want. And if you have a problem with shaking hands, or if you have been blessed with shaky hands, then you have a distinct advantage on this one, because shaky lines are cool. I like it that way. There's a book out. I don't know if it's a new book. What's his name? Paul Clark mentioned it in one of his videos the other day, by someone called Ptolemy. I think it's Ptolemy Dean. He's a famous London architect, and architect, that means to say that he does he's built all sorts of things. He does very precise lines, straight lines, and so on. He's got a book about architecture, but all the lines are wonky. You have to have a look at it on Amazon. You can take a look. All his lines are shaky like this. It's so funny. And he's drawn all these buildings, and they've all got shaky lines. It's so funny. But he's become quite famous. Well, he already was famous. He was already very famous. So give them some little nails. It's amazing, actually. I'm just going to correct that angle a little bit and come out there like that. And the wing here. These look like little sharks sticking out of the water, don't they? And this little seagull here, I always think they have such funny faces because they're half laughing and half frowning, like little lawyers, teachers or something. There we go, their little webbed feet, like that. Don't want to do too many details. We have this gasping fish here too, saying, why have I got my head this far out of the water? And then the wooden post, or whatever it is that they're standing on, we need to just give that a bit of a sketch. And I might just put a few lines here at the bottom of the posts and underneath the fish. And if we just put a little smile line there, and then I think we might most probably, if I can find it, need to erase some of these pencil lines. Have I got a rubber somewhere? Be careful because I'm not sure if it's all completely dry yet. Scary. Okay, there's some lines in the sky. That's bound to be dry. Okay, I'm going to rub those out and then I'm going to come back. Okay, so there we are. I've rubbed off all of the pencil marks and I'm just going to drop in a few little dots and a little darkening on the fins of the fish, and I don't know, maybe I just want to fill that bit of the beak in there as well, perhaps. And I think that's about it. That's a super quick painting. Very quick one that you can just dash off when you need a little card to give to somebody. And there we are then. 2 pelicans, just right for Florida.